Ambassador Sarah smoothed her blue dress suit and checked her watch. Today was the biggest day in human history. Earth was about to become the 847th member of the Galactic Council. After 3 years of tests, meetings, and paperwork, humanity had finally been accepted into the big family of space civilizations. The meeting room was huge. Sarah had never seen anything like it. The walls curved up so high she could barely see the ceiling. Strange lights floated in the air without any wires or supports. The room smelled like flowers mixed with something that reminded her of her grandmother's attic. Around the massive circular table sat the strangest collection of beings Sarah had ever imagined. They looked like walking crystals that changed colors when they moved. Their leader, Counselor At, sparkled like a rainbow when the light hit him just right. Next to them floated the Veil Collective, who looked like living clouds of gas that somehow managed to wear translator devices. The delegation made Sarah think of giant insects, but prettier. Their shells shone like metal, and they moved with perfect coordination, like dancers who had practiced the same routine for years. At the far end sat beings that looked like octopuses the size of elephants, their tentacles moving constantly as they spoke in low, rumbling voices. Sarah felt small among all these aliens, but she reminded herself why she was here. She represented all of humanity. 7 billion people back on Earth were counting on her to make this work. "Welcome, humans of Earth," said Council Leader Hun, his massive tentacles curling in what their briefings had told her was a sign of respect. His voice came through her translator as a deep, pleasant rumble. "Today you join our great community of peaceful species." "Thank you," Sarah replied, standing up. "We are honored to be here. Humanity looks forward to learning from all of you and sharing what we know." The ceremony began with each council member saying something nice about humans. They talked about human creativity, human determination, and how impressed they were with human technology. Sarah smiled and nodded, feeling proud of her species. But something felt wrong. She noticed the way some of the aliens looked at the human delegation. It wasn't exactly fear, but it wasn't comfortable either. Several times, she caught delegates whispering to each other and glancing at her team. The Veil Collective seemed to be staying farther away from the humans than from other species. Dr. Martinez, the team scientist, leaned over and whispered, "Is it just me, or do they seem nervous about something?" Engineer, who was built like a football player and had to duck through most of the station's doorways, nodded quietly. "I've been getting weird looks all week. Maybe they're not used to humans yet." The formal ceremony continued for 2 hours. Sarah signed documents that she couldn't read, even with the translator. She shook hands, tentacles, and things she couldn't name with beings from dozens of different worlds. Everyone was polite, but that strange feeling of unease never went away. Finally, Counselor At approached the human delegation. His crystal form had turned a soft blue color, which Sarah remembered meant he was trying to be formal and important. "Ambassador," he said, his voice crackling through the translator, "we require one final piece of information for our official records. We need your planet's galactic designation coordinates." Sarah smiled. This was easy. She had memorized all of Earth's astronomical data before the trip. "Of course, Counselor. We are located in the Sol system, 3rd planet from our star. Our galaxy is what you call the Milky Way, and we're in the Orion Arm section. Our planet is officially designated Sol 3, but we call it Earth." The massive room fell completely silent. Sarah looked around, confused. Every alien in the room was staring at her. The floating lights seemed to dim. Even the constant humming of the station's machinery seemed quieter. At's crystal form began changing colors rapidly, cycling through blue, yellow, and now a deep red that made Sarah think of warning lights. His voice, when it came through the translator, sounded strange and tight. "Please confirm," he whispered, and the translator made it sound like he was having trouble breathing. "Sol system, 3rd planet from your star, the one your species calls Earth. Yes, Sarah said slowly, now definitely worried. Is there a problem? That's when everything went crazy. Alarm bells started ringing throughout the station. The lights in the room flashed red. Half of the delegation simply fell over, and Sarah couldn't tell if they were dead or just unconscious. The Vale Collective representative began spinning rapidly and then shot away from the human delegation so fast that it looked like a small tornado. Other council members jumped up from their seats and began rushing toward the exits. Sarah heard strange sounds coming through the translator, words in alien languages that the machine couldn't translate, but which sounded like cursing. "What's happening?" Dr. Martinez shouted over the noise. Engineer grabbed Sarah's arm. "Should we run too?" Before Sarah could answer, Hun's voice boomed over the station speaker system. His translator made him sound completely calm, but Sarah could see his tentacles thrashing around like he was fighting an invisible enemy. Emergency session. All council members to secure Chamber 7 immediately. Security level maximum. This is not a drill. The remaining aliens in the room began filing out quickly, but in an organized way. Like people leaving a building during a fire drill, but trying very hard not to panic. Sarah noticed that none of them would look directly at the human delegation. Within 5 minutes, the huge ceremonial room was empty except for the 4 humans. They stood there in their formal Earth clothes, surrounded by strange alien furniture, listening to alarm bells ring. "Well," said Security Chief, who had been quiet during the whole ceremony, "I don't think that went the way it was supposed to." Sarah looked at her team and then at the empty room. Somewhere in this space station, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were having an emergency meeting about Earth. And from the way they had reacted to just hearing their planet's name, Sarah was pretty sure it wasn't going to be good news. "I think," she said quietly, "we need to find out what they know about Earth that we don't." Sarah and her team waited in the empty ceremonial room for 3 hours. The alarm bells had stopped, but nobody came to tell them what was happening. They tried to contact the station's information desk, but their translators just gave them a message that said, "Please wait for assistance." Finally, a small robot rolled into the room. It looked like a metal trash can with arms and spoke in a voice that sounded like a nervous child. "Human delegation, please follow me to secure Chamber 7. Council Leader Hun wishes to speak with you immediately." They followed the robot through halls that were much emptier than before. Usually, the station was busy with aliens from hundreds of different worlds doing business, trading, and visiting. Now Sarah saw only a few beings, and they all seemed to be in a hurry to get somewhere else. The robot led them to a section of the station that Sarah had never seen before. The walls here were thicker, and she noticed that the doors had heavy locks. This was clearly where the council handled serious business. Secure Chamber 7 was much smaller than the ceremonial room, but it felt much more important. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and data that Sarah couldn't read. Around a smaller table sat 12 beings, the most important leaders from the major species in the council. Hun sat at the head of the table. His tentacles were moving slowly now, but Sarah could see they were still shaking slightly. Counselor At was there too, his crystal form now a deep purple color that the briefing materials had said meant extreme concern. "Please sit," Hun said, pointing to 4 chairs that had obviously been brought in quickly for the humans. "We need to talk about your planet." Sarah sat down carefully. She had been to many important meetings as a diplomat, but none of them had ever felt as serious as this one. "Counselor, we're confused about what happened in the ceremony. Did we do something wrong?" "Wrong?" It made a sound that the translator couldn't convert. "No, humans. You have done nothing wrong, but we have made a terrible mistake." A new alien spoke up. Sarah recognized her as Elle from the Confederation, a species that looked like giant butterflies with silver wings. Her voice through the translator sounded sad and worried. "Tell me, Ambassador, What do you know about your planet's history in galactic records? I thought Earth wasn't in galactic records, Sarah said. That's why we had first contact protocols and all the testing. You said we were a new species. Hun's tentacles curled in what Sarah now recognized as deep unhappiness. We thought you were from a planet we had never heard of, but your planet is very famous among our people. We just knew it by a different name. Another council member spoke. This one was from the Republic and looked like a tall, thin human covered in blue scales. In our records, your planet is called Oran. This translates roughly to your language as the Crucible of Nightmares or Where Death Learns. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. I'm sorry, but there must be some mistake. Earth is a beautiful planet. We have oceans, forests, mountains. It's really quite nice. The room fell silent again. Sarah was beginning to hate when that happened. Counselor At's crystal form shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before, a sick yellow-green that seemed to pulse with its own light. You think your planet is nice? Well, yes, Engineer said. I mean, it has its problems, but most of us like living there. Great beaches, good fishing, lots of interesting places to visit. Elle's wings began fluttering rapidly, which Sarah's briefing materials had said was a sign of extreme anxiety in her species. Perhaps we should explain what our records say about Oran. Hun activated a large screen behind him. It showed what looked like a star map, with one solar system highlighted in red warning symbols. For as long as our civilizations have kept records, Hun said, Oran has been known as a Class X. According to our scientists, it is a planet so dangerous that no intelligent life could possibly evolve there. The planet, At continued, is described in our oldest texts as a world dominated by massive predators, deadly weather systems, toxic plant life, and geological instability that would kill any known sapient species within days. Sarah looked at her team. They all seemed as confused as she felt. I think there's been a mistake. Earth doesn't have any massive predators. Well, except for maybe tigers and bears, but they mostly stay away from people. The aliens around the table all made sounds that the translators couldn't handle. Sarah got the impression they might be gasping. Did you say tigers and bears? They asked. Sure, security chief said. Plus sharks, wolves, big cats, poisonous snakes. But humans have been dealing with them for thousands of years. We've got it pretty much under control. At stood up so fast that his crystal form made a ringing sound. You have poisonous creatures on your planet, and you consider this normal. Well, not just poisonous, Dr. Martinez said helpfully. Some of them are venomous. Poison means you get sick if you eat them. Venom means they inject toxins when they bite you. We have both kinds. Several council members began making sounds that definitely sounded like whimpering. Elle's wings were now moving so fast they were just a blur. The geological instability. Oh, you mean earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, that kind of thing, Sarah said. Yeah, we get those. They can be pretty destructive, but mostly we just rebuild afterward. You rebuild? Hun asked quietly. After what our records call planet-destroying catastrophic events, you simply rebuild. Sure, said. I mean, what else would we do? We need places to live. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Ed asked the question that Sarah realized had been bothering all of them. Tell me, humans, what do you consider a dangerous planet? Sarah thought about it. Well, I guess somewhere without air to breathe. Or maybe a planet that's all covered in lava or frozen solid or with acid rain that could melt your skin off. You know, somewhere you couldn't actually survive. The council members all looked at each other. Sarah could see something like terror in their expressions, or at least what she hoped was terror, because the alternative was that they were all getting ready to attack. Finally, Hun spoke in a voice so quiet that Sarah had to strain to hear him through the translator. Humans from Earth, We need to ask you some very important questions about your planet and your species, and we need you to answer them honestly, because the safety of this entire station may depend on your answers." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Whatever was happening here was much bigger and much more serious than a simple first contact ceremony. "We'll answer anything you want to know," she said. "Good," Hun replied. "Because if our records are correct, you may be the most dangerous species in the known galaxy, and we just invited you to join our government." Dr. Martinez opened her tablet and pulled up a file labeled Earth Environmental Data. She had brought it to share interesting facts about their home planet with their new galactic neighbors. Now it seemed like this information might be the most important thing she had ever presented. "Okay," she said, "where would you like me to start?" Hun's tentacles were moving in small, nervous circles. "Let us begin with basic atmospheric composition. What do you breathe?" "Our atmosphere is about 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen," Dr. Martinez read from her tablet. The reaction was immediate. Counselor had made a sound like glass breaking. Elle fell off her chair. The delegate began breathing rapidly through a device that Sarah hadn't noticed before. "Did she say 21% oxygen?" At whispered. "I'm afraid so," Dr. Martinez said, now looking worried. "Is that a problem?" A small, furry alien that Sarah hadn't been introduced to yet started speaking rapidly in its own language. The translator worked hard for a moment before converting it. "Impossible, impossible, they would explode, they would burn, impossible." "I'm sorry," Sarah interrupted. "Could you explain why this is upsetting?" Hun seemed to be having trouble speaking. "Most of our species require between 2% and 5% oxygen to survive. The Who are among the hardiest species we know. Consider anything above 8% to be dangerously explosive. 21% would kill most of us within minutes." "But that's just our normal air," engineer said. "I mean, when we do hard work or exercise, we sometimes need even more oxygen." "You exercise in that atmosphere?" they asked. "Sure, we run, lift weights, play sports. Some people climb mountains where the air has even more oxygen concentration at the top. Wait, no, I think it's less at the top. I always get that backwards." The furry alien made a sound that might have been crying. "What about gravity?" Elle asked, her wings barely moving now. "Please tell me you evolved in low gravity." Dr. Martinez checked her tablet. "Earth's gravity is 1 g, that's our standard measurement." "1 full gravity?" Hun asked. "You evolved under 1 full gravity." "Is that bad?" Sarah asked. "Most council species evolved in gravity between 0.3 and 0.6 of your measurement. I personally come from a world with 0.4 g. 1 full gravity would crush most of our bones." Stood up and did a little jump to stretch his legs. The sound of his feet hitting the floor made several aliens flinch. "Funny thing is, this station's artificial gravity feels a little light to us. It's only about 0.8 g here." "You're saying that our maximum artificial gravity, which we use only for emergency training, feels light to you?" Ed asked. "Yeah, it's like walking on the moon. Takes some getting used to." Sarah was beginning to understand why the aliens had panicked. "Maybe we should talk about something less concerning." "Yes," Hun said hopefully. "Tell us about your planet's surface. Surely it is mostly dry land like most habitable worlds." Dr. Martinez looked at her tablet and winced. "Actually, about 71% of Earth's surface is covered in water." The room erupted. Several aliens jumped up from their seats. Others began speaking rapidly in their own languages. The translator gave up trying to convert some of the sounds and just made beeping noises. 71% water?" Elle asked, her voice barely audible. "Yeah, we have 5 major oceans plus lots of lakes and rivers," Dr. Martinez said. "Most humans live pretty close to some kind of water." "I come from a desert world," Ed said slowly. My people have never seen a natural body of water larger than what you would call a small pond. The idea of an ocean. It is terrifying beyond measure. Really? Said. That's too bad. Earth's oceans are great. You can swim in them, surf on the waves, go fishing. My kids love playing in the water at the beach. Your children play in vast bodies of water? They asked. Sure, we teach them to swim when they're really young. Most humans can swim at least a little bit. What about the predators in these oceans? Hun asked. Dr. Martinez brightened up. Oh, we have amazing marine life. Whales, dolphins, sharks, jellyfish, octopuses like you, Counselor Hun, but much smaller. Did you say sharks? Elle whispered. Oh yes, we have lots of different kinds. Great whites, tiger sharks, bull sharks. Some of them get really big, maybe 20 feet long, but shark attacks are pretty rare. Most of the time, they leave people alone. The furry alien began making a sound that the translator converted as, no, 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 no. You swim in the same water as 20-foot predators and consider this normal? Ed asked. Well, not the same exact water usually, security chief said. Though sometimes we do see them when we're swimming. My brother's a marine biologist, and he swims with sharks all the time for his research. Your brother voluntarily enters water with large predators? Hun asked. Yeah, he says they're actually pretty gentle most of the time. He's more worried about jellyfish stings, to be honest. Dr. Martinez pulled up a video on her tablet. Here, let me show you some footage of Earth's marine life. This is from my vacation last year. The video showed Dr. Martinez swimming in clear blue water, wearing only a small amount of protective gear. In the background, Sarah could clearly see the dark shape of what was probably a shark. 3 aliens immediately required medical attention. While a small robot medical unit attended to the unconscious council members, Dr. Martinez continued her presentation. We also have wonderful land animals. Bears, lions, tigers, wolves, elephants, hippos. Africa has the most exciting wildlife. You can go on safari and see animals in their natural habitat. Safari? Ed asked weakly. It's where you travel to areas with dangerous animals to look at them and take pictures, Sarah explained. Humans think it's fun. You seek out dangerous animals for entertainment? They asked. Well, you usually stay in a vehicle or at a safe distance. Though some people do nature walks in areas with predators. You just have to be careful and know what you're doing. Engineer nodded. I went camping in Alaska last summer. Great bear country up there. Saw a grizzly with cubs, beautiful animals, but you definitely want to give them plenty of space. You camp in bear country? Elle asked. Sure. As long as you store your food properly and don't do anything stupid, they mostly ignore you. Though you should carry bear spray just in case. What is bear spray? Hun asked, though he looked like he didn't really want to know. Chemical deterrent, said. Sprays a cloud of irritating chemicals that makes the bear go away without hurting it. You have developed weapons specifically for defending against large predators, and you consider camping in their territory to be a recreational activity? Ed asked. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds weird, said. But really, it's not that dangerous if you're smart about it. Sarah looked around the room at the terrified aliens and began to understand just how different Earth was from the rest of the galaxy. What humans considered a normal, pleasant planet was literally a horror story to everyone else. There's more, isn't there? Hun asked quietly. Dr. Martinez looked at her tablet, which still had about 50 pages of data about Earth's environment, weather, geology, and wildlife. Well, she said carefully, we haven't really talked about the weather yet. 2 hours later, Hun called for a break. Half the council members needed medical attention, and the other half looked like they wanted to run away. Dr. Martinez had only gotten through Earth's weather patterns, hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, and monsoons, Before Counselor, it had started making a sound like a broken alarm. "We need to conduct some additional research," Hun announced. "Please remain here while we consult our specialists." The human delegation was left alone in the chamber with some food that tasted like cardboard and water that was oddly sweet. They sat quietly for a while, trying to understand what was happening. "I think we might have a problem," Sarah said finally. "You think?" replied. "They're acting like we told them we eat bobbies for breakfast." "Maybe we should have started with something less scary," Dr. Martinez suggested, "like flowers or music." Before anyone could answer, the door opened, and Hun returned with 3 new aliens Sarah had never seen before. They were smaller than the council members, carrying strange devices that looked like a mix between computers and medical equipment. "These are Hun explained. Doctor and Professor Han, they need to run some tests." Doctor looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, covered in bright green feathers. She approached, who was by far the largest human in the group. "May I scan you?" she asked in a voice that sounded nervous. "Sure," said. "What kind of scan?" She held up a device that looked like a flashlight crossed with a telescope. A beam of soft blue light passed over his body for about 30 seconds. When it was finished, Doctor looked at the results and made a sound that the translator converted as impossible. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked. Doctor showed her device to Hun. "Council leader, this human's bone density is 3.2 times greater than average galactic humanoid standard." "Which means?" Sarah asked. "Which means," Professor Han said, stepping forward, "that your skeleton is more than 3 times stronger than the strongest bones we have ever recorded." Shrugged. "I do a lot of weightlifting, keeps the bones healthy." "You deliberately stress your bones to make them stronger?" Doctor asked. "Sure, exercise is good for you. Most humans do some kind of physical activity." The scientists looked at each other with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as the galactic expression for "these creatures are insane." Doctor ran another scan, this time checking reaction speed. She held up a small device that flashed a light and was supposed to press a button when he saw it. After 10 tests, she stared at her device in disbelief. "Council leader, this human's neural response time is 0.12 seconds. "Is that good or bad?" asked. "Our fastest recorded reaction time for any known species is 0.31 seconds, Professor Han said quietly. "You are more than twice as fast as the previous record holder." Said. "That's neat. I used to play baseball in college, had to have fast reflexes to hit a fastball." "You play games that require these superhuman reflexes?" Doctor asked. "Superhuman," Dr. Martinez laughed. "It's pretty quick, but he's not that special. My little nephew is faster than him, and he's only 8 years old." The 3 scientists began talking rapidly to each other in their own languages. The translators gave up and just made static sounds. "Perhaps we could test your endurance capabilities," Doctor asked. "Sure, but I should mention that I'm not in the best shape right now. I pulled a muscle in my back last week, and I haven't been able to do my full workout routine." They connected to a device that looked like a bicycle crossed with a torture machine. He began pedaling while they monitored his heart rate, breathing, and other vital signs. After 30 minutes, was breathing hard but still going strong. The scientists were staring at their equipment like it was broken. "This is impossible," Doctor whispered. "His efficiency is off our measurement scale." "How do you feel?" Professor Han asked. "Pretty good. This is about like my normal warm-up routine. Want me to keep going?" "Please stop," Doctor said quickly. "Our equipment cannot handle readings beyond what you have already provided." Hun had been watching all of this with his tentacles curled into tight knots. "Humans, we need to discuss your species' history." "Okay," Sarah said. "What would you like to know?" "How long has your species existed?" Dr. Martinez thought for a moment. Modern humans have been around for about 200,000 years, but human ancestors go back millions of years. And during this time, you have lived peacefully on your— Well, not exactly peacefully, Sarah said. Humans have fought a lot of wars throughout history. The room went quiet again. Sarah was really getting tired of that. Wars? Hun asked. Against what? Surely not against each other. Oh no, mostly against each other, said. Humans fight each other pretty regularly. Wars, revolutions, civil conflicts. It's been going on for thousands of years. You wage war against other members of your own species. Ed asked, his crystal form now a color that Sarah was pretty sure meant, horrified beyond measure. Yeah, unfortunately. We've gotten better at it over time, too. The weapons we have now could destroy our entire planet if we used them all at once. Doctor made a sound like a deflating balloon. You developed planet-destroying weapons while living on a Class X. Well, we developed them because we were fighting each other, Dr. Martinez said. It wasn't specifically about the planet. Professor Han pulled up some data on his device. According to our historical records, no sapient species has ever fought a war while dealing with Class X environmental conditions. Most species cannot even maintain civilization under such stress. Really? Said. Humans have had major wars during ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, all kinds of stuff. We just keep fighting anyway. During ice ages? Ed asked. Sure, World War II happened during some pretty harsh winters. Didn't slow things down much. Hun was very quiet for a long time. Then he asked a question that made Sarah realize just how serious their situation was. Humans, in your wars against each other, what is considered an acceptable casualty rate? Sarah looked at her team. None of them were military historians, but they all knew enough about human conflict to answer. Depends on the war, said. In some battles, armies have taken 50% casualties and kept fighting. In World War II, some countries lost millions of people and kept going for years. Your species continues organized warfare after losing half of your fighting force, Doctor asked. Sometimes, if the cause is important enough. And the civilian population supports this. Usually, humans can be pretty stubborn when they think something matters. Hun's tentacles had stopped moving entirely. And this happens while you are simultaneously fighting for survival on a that would kill most galactic species in days. I mean, we don't think of it as fighting for survival, Sarah said. It's just where we live. The council leader was quiet for another long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. We need to have an emergency session with the full council immediately, and we need to contact the Galactic Military Command. The military? Sarah asked, now genuinely worried. Why do you need the military? Hun looked at her with what might have been pity. Because we have just discovered that we have invited a species of apex predators into our government. Predators who have spent 200,000 years being forged by the most hostile environment in the known galaxy, while simultaneously waging constant war against each other. He paused, his tentacles beginning to tremble again. And if our calculations are correct, any one of you could probably fight your way through our entire security force without breaking a sweat. The emergency session was interrupted by something no one expected. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in a red glow that made the already nervous aliens look even more frightened. Then the station's voice system crackled to life with a message in the standard galactic language. Attention all personnel. Class M solar flare detected. All primary systems offline. Life support operating on emergency power. Estimated time until critical failure, 4 hours. All personnel prepare for emergency evacuation. Sarah felt the artificial gravity flicker and weaken. Around the table, the council members began making sounds of panic in a dozen different languages. "What's happening?" Ed asked, his crystal form now flashing between colors so quickly it hurt to look at. "Solar flare," Dr. Martinez said, checking her tablet which was somehow still working. "A big one by the sound of it. The radiation probably fried most of the station's electronics." Hun was moving his tentacles in what Sarah now recognized as extreme distress. "The evacuation ships are automated if the primary systems are offline." "No ships," Elle whispered, her wings barely moving. A new voice came over the emergency system. "Attention! Evacuation ships non-operational. Repeat, evacuation ships non-operational. All personnel advised to remain in secure areas and await rescue." The alien panic got worse. Some of the smaller species began making sounds that might have been crying. Others started talking rapidly about emergency protocols and radiation exposure limits. Sarah looked at her team, was already rolling up his sleeves, was checking the door to see how thick the walls were. Dr. Martinez was studying her tablet and doing calculations in her head. "How bad is this for you?" Sarah asked Hun. "Very bad," he replied, his voice shaking. "This level of radiation will kill most council species within 6 hours. The emergency life support will fail in 4, and the rescue ships cannot reach us for at least 8 hours due to the solar activity. So we need to fix the life support," said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Fix it?" Doctor stared at him. "The primary computer systems are completely destroyed. It would take specialized engineers working in deadly radiation to even attempt repairs." "Good thing we brought an engineer," said, nodding at. Was already moving toward the door. "I'll need to get to the main engineering section. Dr. Martinez, can you figure out what systems are most critical?" "Already working on it," she said, tapping at her tablet. "Life support, gravity generators, and radiation shielding are the priorities." "Wait," Hun called out. "You cannot go out there. The radiation levels will kill you." Paused at the door. "What's the exposure level?" Dr. Martinez checked her readings. "About 800 rem per hour in the main corridors." "That's not great," admitted, "but it won't kill me for at least a couple hours. Plenty of time to get the important stuff working." The alien stared at him in shock. "Did he say that will not kill him?" Ed asked. "Humans are pretty resistant to radiation," Dr. Martinez said. "We'll get sick, but we can handle short-term exposure to levels that would kill most species immediately." "This is insane," Professor Han whispered. "You're going to walk into lethal radiation to save us." "Well, yeah," said. "I mean, what else would we do, let you die?" "Stood up, I'll come with you, extra hands." "I'll coordinate repairs from here," Dr. Martinez said. "Sarah, can you handle communications with the council and keep everyone calm?" Sarah looked around the room at the terrified alien faces. Some of them were still convinced that humans were dangerous monsters. Now they were about to find out what humans really did when people were in trouble. "I'll take care of everyone here," she said. "You go save the station." And left the secure chamber and headed into the radiation-flooded corridors of the damaged station. Sarah could track their progress on Dr. Martinez's tablet as they made their way to the engineering sections. "Status report," Sarah said into her communicator. His voice came back, only slightly distorted by static. "Main engineering is a mess, but it's not as bad as I thought. Looks like the radiation surge fried the control circuits, but the primary systems are intact. I just need to bypass about 50 burned-out components and rebuild the control interface." "How long will that take?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Give me an hour." While worked, Sarah tried to keep the council members calm. It wasn't easy. Most of them were convinced they were all going to die, and they couldn't understand why the humans were risking their lives for aliens they had just met. "Why are they doing this?" Elle asked quietly. "According to our tests, you are apex predators. Apex predators do not sacrifice themselves for other species." Sarah thought about how to explain it. I guess we don't see it as sacrifice. We see it as helping. When someone's in trouble, you help them. That's just what you do. Even if it might kill you. Even if it might kill you. 45 minutes later, the main lights came back on. The gravity stabilized. Sarah could hear the air circulation systems humming back to life. His voice came over the communicator. Life support is back online and stable, working on the radiation shielding now. 20 minutes after that, Dr. Martinez's tablet showed radiation levels dropping back to normal. The emergency was over. And returned to the secure chamber an hour later. They were both sweating, tired, and their clothing was stained with grease and coolant fluid from the station systems, had a small cut on his forehead and was limping slightly. The moment they walked in, something extraordinary happened. Every alien in the room stood up. Hun's tentacles moved in a pattern that Sarah realized was a formal salute. Its crystal form had turned a brilliant gold color. Even the usually nervous Elle was standing perfectly straight with her wings spread wide. "You saved us," Hun said simply. Looked embarrassed. It wasn't that hard. Just had to jury-rig some control circuits and replace a few burned-out processors. Any decent engineer could have done it. Any decent human engineer, Doctor corrected. No other known species could have survived in those radiation levels long enough to complete the repairs. Plus you did it for people you barely know, Professor Han added. For aliens who had been treating you with suspicion and fear. Shrugged, you were in trouble, we helped. That's what people do. Hun was quiet for a long time, his tentacles moving in slow, thoughtful patterns. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded different, less afraid, more hopeful. "We have been thinking about this all wrong," he said. "Yes, humans come from a yes. They are stronger, faster, and tougher than any species we have ever encountered. Yes, they have spent their entire evolutionary history fighting wars and surviving disasters that would destroy our civilizations." He paused and looked directly at Sarah. "But today we learned the most important thing about humans. They use all of that strength and toughness and stubbornness to protect people, even strangers, even people who were afraid of them." Its golden color grew brighter. Perhaps the universe did not create your world to test the concept of survival. Perhaps it created your world to forge the guardians that the galaxy never knew it needed. Sarah felt tears coming to her eyes. After all the fear and confusion and panic, the aliens finally understood. "Does this mean we can still join the council?" she asked. Hun's tentacles curled in what Sarah had learned was the equivalent of a smile. "Ambassador, I think the real question is whether the Council is worthy of joining humanity." 2 hours later, rescue ships arrived to find the station operating normally and all personnel safe. The emergency that should have killed everyone had been solved by 4 humans with basic tools and a willingness to walk into deadly radiation to help their new friends. When Sarah's official report reached Earth, the first question from the president was, "Did we make a good impression?" Sarah looked at the formal invitation to establish a permanent human embassy at the galactic capital, the requests for human engineering consultants from a dozen different species, and the preliminary trade agreements that would make Earth one of the wealthiest planets in known space. "Mr. President," she said, "I think we're going to fit in just fine." Behind her was showing pictures from his Alaska camping trip to a group of fascinated alien engineers. They were all taking careful notes on human recreational survival techniques and asking detailed questions about bear safety. Some things, Sarah thought, never change. Humans would always be the crazy ones who did dangerous things for fun. The difference was that now they had an entire galaxy that wanted to learn how.